Today we are with Bruno Borie from Château Ducru-Beaucaillou. It's a second classified growth in the Saint-Julien appellation. And Bruno, maybe if you just want to say a few words and introduce yourself, and I have some questions for you.
Oh, great. Not too difficult, I hope.
No.
Thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be with you tonight, and really appreciate what Touton has been organizing in the recent past with this new text that we have to develop under present circumstances. I hope the virus is not affecting too many of you guys, and same here. And in fact, for the first time after so many months, I realized what a shame it will be, or what a problem it will be for us if all of a sudden somebody in the team gets hit by the virus, because you cannot smell, you cannot taste, we cannot make any blend. It would be terrible. So we are extremely concerned, and make everything possible to avoid this damn virus. Anyway, so I am Bruno Borie, and I'm the proud owner of co-owner of Ducru-Beaucaillou. In fact, I work for two ladies, for my mother, who is just next to me actually, living here at the estate, and my sister, and I am just above 60 something, 63 now, and I have a wife who is wonderful and a child who is adorable. And Louis starts wine, but it's even though he's 12 and a half now, but we have more and more difficulties to get him trying wines, because at school and wherever he goes, they say, oh no, drinking is not good, and etc. I started drinking when I was 6 years old. But anyway, he said, he asked me the other day, why or how do my grandmom survives drinking 4 glasses of wine a day? And I said, well, it's very simple. The wine keeps, not the doctor, keeps the virus away.
Yeah.
A glass of wine a day keeps the virus away.
I wish that were true.
It is true, indeed. It has been demonstrated, actually, that drinking wine is pretty good against it. Anyway, so I'm here, and I've been put in charge since the 3rd of January 2003. Now, Ducru-Beaucaillou is we have developed a first plan from 2003 to last year, which we called Reconquista, or Reconquista in Spanish. In other words, we try to reconquer our position at Ducru-Beaucaillou in terms of, first of all, in terms of quality, but also in terms of acreage, in terms of new developments, and etc., etc. So it was really a first period of 15, 16 years to get things right for a new plan that we called sustainable refundation, where we can try to really establish Ducru-Beaucaillou as a leading growth in the Medoc and in Bordeaux, and for that reason we have really recruited a solid team. So on top of the team we had since a few years now, we have added last year 2 young engineers which are responsible for quality, research, development, and new projects. And we are really working hard to make sure that everything is done in this respect, and really bring up every year our everything.
Okay.
Ducru-Beaucaillou is now, we have a map, so thank you very much. We are located in Saint-Julien, so you can see Saint-Julien is just in between, in fact, Margaux on the south and Saint-Estèphe in the north, pretty close to Pauillac. We are located, as you can see, just above the river, which is a key element for us, because this river, which is 675 square kilometer surface, which is also 3 miles wide here, is really a big estuary. It's actually the largest estuary in Europe, and really act as an air conditioning system to our vineyards that are located next to it. In fact, those huge quantities of water going in and out every day really act as make it a little warmer in the winter and a little cooler in the summer. So it's really a key element in the map of Ducru-Beaucaillou.
Yeah, and for those of you who can see the map there, so this is zoomed in on the Saint-Julien appellation. To the north, you have Pauillac and Saint-Estèphe. To the south, you have Margaux. You have the city of Bordeaux down south. And as you can see, Ducru-Beaucaillou is really in that southeastern most corner. So really, you're right on the river, essentially, which is prime terroir. Let me see if I can find a picture here, which shows. So really, the chateau is right here, where it says Park and Garden. And you can see the estuary right there.
And you can see the estuary, which is a very good photo because it's sunrise, so you can see the sunrise. But you can see there is a lot of water, so it's a very big tide, I think, and it's probably high tide. So that's really you can really picture, just by this picture you can really understand how it works.
So since we're talking about the location in Saint-Julien and your proximity to the river, can you talk a little bit more specifically about the terroir that you have at Château Ducru-Beaucaillou, the name Ducru-Beaucaillou, and how that all ties in?
Thank you. Very good question. In fact, like in many other chateaus or a few other chateaus, everything is in the name. In other words, Ducru is the name of a previous owner, just after the French Revolution in 1780. And Beaucaillou means beautiful stone. So it's the idea of a proprietor, a manager, and an ecosystem. Terroir, I always like to translate the word terroir, which is a complex concept, by ecosystem. It's not only the geology, the geography, the local climate and the microclimate and etc. So it's all together, this idea of the ecosystem. And what you can see here is a photo of the soil, and you can see those stones, which we call Gunsian stones, Gunsian grave, that have been brought about 2 million years ago from the two mountains, one in the center of France and the Pyrenees south of France. And they carried by the rivers, by the Dordogne River and the Garonne River into the estuary, and were deposited there, and creating not only a beautiful slope facing east, as we saw, but also this wonderful, very poor soils. In fact, as you can see here, even though you have a few weeds that are growing, you can see that it's a very poor soil. You cannot grow anything else but vines. It's excellent for vines. For corn or wheat, it will be a little another challenge. But the fact that it is poor also makes the vines digging deeper in the ground to find their nutriment, and therefore it is really a key element in the quality of our soil.
And this sorry, go ahead.
In fact, like we say, the poorer the soil, the more difficult for the vine, the better the wine. In other words, the vines need to suffer to produce a better quality. Just like us when we do push-ups.
You know, I like that analogy. That's the first time I've heard it. And for this particular terroir, we always hear, you know, gravel soils for Cabernet Sauvignon. So do you have mostly planting of Cabernet Sauvignon? Are you changing that?
It's again, it's a very good question, because in fact, it gives me the opportunity to really point that in France, and I think generally in Europe, the varietals are a decision, are an agronomic decision. It's not a marketing decision. Or taste decision. We do not grow Cabernet Sauvignon because we like Cabernet Sauvignon. Of course, we love Cabernet Sauvignon, but I mean, we grow on this specific plot, Merlot or Cabernet Sauvignon, because the varietal is the most adapted to the given plot. I was reading earlier today 2 books, because I am preparing a memo for that I have to prepare anyway. But I was reading that as early as Virgil in the Latin days, 2,000 years ago, they were already having varietals, and Virgil pointed out that certain areas are good for red, certain areas are good for white, certain areas are good for sweet, certain areas are good for dry, and certain areas are good for vulgar wines, basic wines. Certain areas are for wines with aging capacity. Latin days, I'm pointing out Latin days. As early as also 300 years ago, we had in Bordeaux, we have one famous author called Montesquieu. And Montesquieu is the father of one of our founders here in France, because he was specialized in law, and certainly a very, very respected writer under Louis XIV. And Montesquieu was also, I would say, a proprietor in Bordeaux, Château de la Brède. And it's very interesting that in 1720, exactly like when Ducru was founded, they were already thinking of different varietals, the most adapted to each plot, and how to, what kind of viticulture to develop on a given spot. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, because today you read every day there is a new vigneron or a new owner that comes with new ideas. But in fact, I think that since the Romans' days, it has always been an obsession for the farmers that we are, an obsession to try to have always the most adjusted material, the most adjusted vines for a given plot, and then the most adjusted care to carry to the vine.
So is it safe to say that at Ducru-Beaucaillou, the plots that are closer to the river, that are maybe more gravel based, are going to be most of your top Cabernet Sauvignon, and then the ones that are maybe a little bit more inland, less gravel, more Merlot?
Exactly. So when first on the top of the hills and going down the slope facing east, this is ideal for Cabernet. Then on the bottom part of the slopes, just next to the river, to the estuary, or which is roughly half a mile away from the river. But on those last, at the bottom of the slope, you have Merlot, because you had all the sand that was carried down, mm-hmm. and you have more sandy, more clay in the ground, and less stones. So at the bottom of the slope, Merlot, and then up the slope, going up and down to the, and just to the D2, the road, the Bordeaux road, yeah. You have Cabernet Sauvignon. Then on the other side of the D2, you have one little difference is you can see where you see there is a little stream, a yellow stream that is cut the appellation in two, where you see Château Talbot, the name of Château Talbot. Okay, this little stream here. All along the stream, you have beautiful slopes with stones. So those are excellent for Cabernet. But in the middle, you have deposit of sand that are a little less good for Cabernet Sauvignon and better for Merlot. And then on the western part of the appellation, where you see in green Gironde, that's more recent soil that were not brought by the river, but were by wind about 1 million years ago, by wind from the ocean. And that is dark sand, little white stones, and that is more like what you have in the Grave. And this is better for Merlot. So western part Merlot, eastern part Cabernet Sauvignon, central will be more Merlot and Cab.
Okay, makes sense. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here and talk briefly about the history of Château Ducru-Beaucaillou. So you just celebrated a milestone this year, 300 years. And throughout the 300 years, if I understand correctly, there's only been 6 family owners.
Yep. It is a privilege, I think, for us, for me, to celebrate this 300 years anniversary. In fact, we think there is a little more than that, but what we are certain, because we got the copy, we got not the copy, we got the contract of wedding on the 30th of May in the church of Saint-Julien. Mary Desjans accepted to marry Jacques de Bergeron, who was an esquire. And but Mary was, I think, a bourgeois, but with a pretty wealthy bourgeois. So she brought the vineyard and the house, and the esquire brought himself. But the result is that they have founded this Beaucaillou, which is alternatively called Beaucaillou, Moncaillou, Mocaillou. I love the word Moncaillou, my stone, but it was not so well written, because everything was written, so sometimes you can read or less. And anyway, so that was a beautiful story. It is also interesting to see that in the year which I discovered with almost with you today, but reading Montesquieu, I will show you the book.
Little history lesson for us.
Oops. Oh, voilà, c'est à l'envers. No, you cannot see. So it's a book that I found, but you cannot see. Sorry. It's a new book that I found this weekend in the library, and it's very interesting because it's a story of this Montesquieu. L'esprit des lois, hein, c'est le grand Montesquieu. But in the 1720 was a real prosperous era for Bordeaux wines.
Okay.
And it's interesting to note also that in those days, the government or the kingdom decided to moderate the production because there was too much wine. So 1720, 300 years ago, very prosperous era. And but still they were working with the gardeners and exchanging with the gardeners from Versailles. They developed a lot of new techniques and etc. It was a real, the 18th century was a real wonderful era for viticulture. They really worked nicely. In terms of vinification, 300 years ago, what we know is that they already were trying to make wines with aging capacity and traveling ability. It's very interesting. In 1720, Beaucaillou was already shipped to Scandinavia, and maybe other countries, but we know definitely for sure that it was shipped to Scandinavia. And so therefore you need to make a wine that has sufficient capacity to travel, therefore a wine that is perfectly made. And Montesquieu gives the recipe of what we call, but he does not call, but what we call the Dutch match. And the Dutch match is sulfur that you stick, that you stabilize on fabric. And this sulfur that he mixes with all kind of spices and different ingredients like cloves, like ginger or whatever. I forgot exactly what he puts in it. Is then liquefied and put on the fabric. And by burning that in the cellars, in the vats, in the barrels, they already were sterilizing everything and making wines with no bacteria. And that is very, very important for the history. This is what the British will started to call the new French claret. The British called Bordeaux claret, but the new French claret at the early 18th century was really a discovery thanks to the sulfur, thanks to the fact that they were sterilizing the vats and making and getting rid of bacteria and yeast, making a stable wine.
I didn't know that.
It's when you visit us after this, I will show you this Montesquieu et la Vigne. It's a book that was written Émile de Perceval, early, I think it is early last century. Oh no, even it's a copyright for 1935. It's only 1935, but it's a very good book, very well documented. And it's very interesting. So wine does not start today and did not start yesterday. It's a long, long, long story.
Yeah, you've come a long way. I mean, things have developed.
Yeah, and it's important. It's important to, I think it's important to realize that even though we are all proud and we think we are wonderful Iran, etc., and we have a tendency probably to neglect a little our predecessors, I think we need to pay respect to them because they really make things wonderful. I must say that we don't have any bottle from 1720, but last week I was able to purchase 2 bottles of Madeira at an auction, and apparently the auctioneer, but of course he will not say that it is undrinkable, but apparently he tasted the wine just before they recorked it, and apparently it's very interesting. So, Madeiras can age 300 years. Bordeaux probably a little less, even though probably the vintage that we make now, like the 2019 or 2018 will certainly have a very, very wonderful aging capacity.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about, you were mentioning 2018, 2019 as recent great vintages for you at Ducru-Beaucaillou. I remember I was lucky enough to be in Bordeaux for the En Primeur campaign for the release of the 2018, and there was a lot of talk about Ducru-Beaucaillou and it being, one of the top wines from the vintage. 2018 is an important year for you. There's a few changes going on. Can you tell us a little bit about the new family of Ducru-Beaucaillou wines and tell us a little bit about the vintage as well? We're starting to receive the 2018s this month, and going into the next few months, we'll be getting them in.
Okay. Thank you for buying. Thank you for being supporters. Thank you. We cherish your clientele. Thank you very much. And of course, we always keep in mind that Guillaume was a kid from here, from the Medoc. He was at school with my brother, and we certainly are great admirer of what is achieved in America. And thank you. 2018, first the family. Our range until now was only Saint-Julien, was mostly Saint-Julien, with a little exception in this track that I will mention afterwards. And in 2018, we decided to change and to readjust the range. First, we had, you see on the number 3 label, is Le Petit Ducru. Le Petit Ducru, in fact, changed from Château Borie. Château Borie was created back in 1970 by my father on a vineyard that he purchased on the western part of the appellation, where we saw on the map Gironde. It was covering roughly 30 hectares, 60 acres of vineyards. And after a few years, after 30, 40, 50 years, the vines were getting older, and in those areas they survive less than they do on the riverside, on the proximity of the estuary. And we were starting to replant it or unplug it. And more and more, we had less production on Lalande Borie, but we were continuing to produce Lalande Borie. And we decided to, in fact, discontinue Lalande Borie and make a third wine of Ducru all over the vineyards. So, including this western part vineyard, plus all the plots that are not selected for Ducru-Beaucaillou or La Croix de Beaucaillou will enter into Le Petit Ducru. So Le Petit Ducru is a new wine, a new brand that is really a third wine of Ducru-Beaucaillou, and we take very good care of it. I think it's I just tasted it earlier with a pretty respected wine critic, and honestly, it really shows very well. It's a wine that is made with roughly half and half Merlot cab, and it's aged 12 months in barrel with about 1/3 of new oak. But it's very chewy, charming, easy, round, fleshy. A wine
with Lalande Borie, is it similar for those who have?
It's a little more. It has gained a little more in complexity because there are grapes from we have added some Asturian origin, so it benefits from this input. So it's a little higher in style than Lalande Borie. And then we have the second wine. Sorry, La Croix de Beaucaillou. La Croix de Beaucaillou, we have slightly readjust the label. The initial label that you had since 2010 was made by J. Jagger. It was a black label with a golden design. Why J. Jagger? Because she is a jewelry designer, and I wanted to make a play on word between Beaucaillou, beautiful stones, and rolling stones. But unfortunately, nobody picked up my play on. And then, last but not least, we have a fourth reference called Madame de Beaucaillou, and that is a Haut Medoc. So it's not a Saint-Julien; it's a Haut Medoc. It's made in our own vineyards. So the first vintage will be 2018. Until then, we used to sell it in bulk under no name. But we've decided to make it. It's mostly in 2018. It comes from vineyards that are just in Cussac, just in south of Saint-Julien, and in 2019 it has integrated some very good selection of Listrac. And now I speak about Listrac. So it's beautiful. You will see it's really a wonderful wine. And Listrac is another commune which is close to my heart because it's a commune where the commune where my mother was born and raised. And it was important for me to pay a tribute to my mother. So we have maintained Château Ducru-Beaucaillou that is distributed by Touton, and that is a very a good wine for a very approachable wine. A wine that is nice and juicy, ideal for bistro style food, for comfort food, ideal for a barbecue on Saturdays. It's an easy wine, a wine for pleasure and for not too much intellectualized, but a good wine to enjoy company, to enjoy family, to enjoy friends. It was my real pleasure to introduce you this Ducru-Beaucaillou and what we are doing here. I think I've been a little too long going back in the history and etc. But history is very important. I think humanity is good. I think we must be proud of humanity. We must pay respect to the previous generation. Anyway, I wish you Thanksgiving is too late. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I wish you very happy holiday. Have fun, drink a lot of wine, and remember, a glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away or the virus away. Cheers. Thank you very much.